this person just hurt me. And there's that thought that sort of went into my mind a few times. Are you just being a little sensitive? Like maybe they were just being blunt and you didn't like to hear it, but they weren't really offending you. But I heard it from enough people. I'm like, I wonder if this person's really offensive. So one day I got to meet this person in person, and I'm telling you what, within 15 seconds of meeting this person, he lodged a pretty defined personal offense, and I was offended. I'm like, you are good. I haven't even known you for 20 seconds, and you've already offended me at a very personal level. That's amazing. How do you have that kind of a gift? But we've got to get over offenses because life is too short to stay there. And you have something more important to do. I want to read a proverb to you. This is Proverbs 19:11. Proverbs 19:11. I was just thinking of this for you gun enthusiasts. That might be an easy way to remember it. A person's wisdom yields patience. It is to one's glory to overlook what? It is to your glory to overlook an offense. Live a long time, live enough, and you just realize, boy, people are going to offend me. I'm going to get offended, but if I'm patient, if I can get over that, if I can overlook it, the word that's used, translated overlook, really means to pass over. To pass over the offense. It's not to ignore it and pretend it didn't happen. I want to make sure you hear this because people do things that are really offensive or really hurtful. It doesn't mean, oh man, I got to ignore that. I've got to close my eyes to it. No, it's not overlooking as if, whatever. And it's not walking around the other way. And it's not letting them continue to offend me and just welcoming it and inviting it. It's to pass over the offense. It's to see it in the way. This was really offensive, but I am not going to get stuck here. My life is too short to get stuck here. My calling is too big. On the other side, I'm going to pass over the offense and get on with my life. Yesterday, I took a walk, and I noticed this hawk. We were watching each other like hawks. He was sitting on a power line, and it was on the street that I was walking. And I was playing this little game of like, when am I going to get too close that he flies away? Just in my mind thinking, oh, I'm getting pretty close. I actually walked by him and he didn't fly away. And then I walked by on the other side of the street. And I must have gotten into the you're too close for comfort zone. So he just goes, and beautiful, just opens his wings and soars off the power line and right into the horizon. And in front of him, there was this pretty large hill. Agricultural field, and I just watched him as he went going right toward the hill, and he just goes right out of sight. And I looked at that, I'm like, oh man, that would be so cool to just be able to open your wings and look at this hill, this offense, this roadblock in front of you, and just go right over top of it. René Descartes, the famous French philosopher, said this: whenever anyone offends me, I try to raise my soul so high that the offense cannot reach it. Whenever anyone offends me, I try to raise my soul so high that the offense cannot reach it. Instead of getting stuck on the offense, I want to move over it. My life is too short to get stuck on it. Your calling is too big. We've got to get over it. How do we get over being easily offended? Sometimes it really is, it becomes a habit. We can all get offended at certain times in life, but sometimes people are easy to offend. They're easier to offend than other people, and it's become sort of a habit, a response habit, to take offense to things that could easily be let go. I want to read to you another passage. This is from Ephesians 4. Ephesians 4:2 says this: always be humble and gentle. Be patient with each other, making allowance for each other's faults because of your love. Always be humble and gentle, making allowance for each other because of your love. Isn't offenses that we often take personally, aren't they often from pride? It's hard to offend a humble person. If you're a humble person, you can laugh at yourself. You want to laugh at yourself at times. And if somebody else does something and you can find a way to laugh at yourself and not take offense to it, it's like, okay, well, I wasn't perfect. I didn't do that right. I'll learn from that and move on. But when we're constantly defending our territory, ready to fight for our honor at any moment, making sure everybody else respects us and knows who they're messing with, man, it's just easy to offend somebody like that. Probably in proportion to the security or insecurity that we have. Be patient with each other as if God is working on us. Be patient with each other as if God is working on us on his own timeline. And if I'm not at the place that you think I should be, maybe God's still working on me there. Making allowance for each other's faults because of what? Because of your love. Make allowance for each other. We're going to be imperfect. I'm going to do things, you're going to do things, you're going to do things. We're all going to do things at times that are hurtful to each other. And if we're ready on guard to be offended, we're going to get stuck a bunch. But if we have an allowance for that, if we've set aside money in the forgiveness account to go, okay, well, I expect that people will do things and say things, and when that comes, we're ready to forgive. We're ready to forgive. We're ready to make allowance for that. What we tend to do is we tend to judge other people by their actions and then read negatively into their intentions. So for example, if somebody did something that we didn't like or said something that was hurtful to us, we tend to judge them by their actions and say, man, you did this. This is what you did. This was wrong. And then we sort of assume they had a negative motive. But what studies have shown this, it's very interesting, but what we tend to do with ourselves is the exact opposite. Well, I know I said that. I know I did that. I shouldn't have done that. But what I really meant was my intention was good. My heart was good. My motive was different. I was just having a bad day, and we'll give ourselves a lot of breaks that we don't give other people. No, you did this. This is what you said. You must have meant it. You must have intended to hurt me because it was so hurtful. But with ourselves, we'll go, gosh, it was the thought that counts. Give me a break. This I'm reminded of every Christmas time or every holiday time because I enjoy giving gifts, but I just stress over it. I don't feel like I'm good at it. My wife is really good at it. Gift giving is her gift. But for me, I want somebody to know how important they are to me. I want to show that love through a gift. But I just don't feel like I get the right gifts all the time. And so I'll put a lot of thought into things. I'll stress over it. And whatever I get at the end of the day, it may not be that great. It may not be a home run gift. But I kind of give it with the qualification of, I want you to know how much I care about you. Like if you open this and it's like, what? Why did you? I didn't want, need, or appreciate that. But I love you. That's supposed to say I love you. Give me the benefit of the doubt. Hear my motives. Hear my heart. Read this through my intentions. And we want that desperately for ourselves. But it's difficult to give to other people. Give me the benefit of the doubt. Don't get quickly offended and assume that I was out for you. Because the truth is, most of the time when people do things to offend us, it has nothing to do with you. Have you noticed this? Somebody does something that's really offensive. It has way more to do with what they're going through than what you have to do with them at all. Not all the time, but many, many times. You could just replace you with any other human being in the world, and the same thing would have happened. They would have been offended. They would have lashed out because they were having a bad day or going through a hard time. It has nothing to do with you. That gives us a different lens, doesn't it? To go, oh my gosh, maybe I shouldn't be so quick to be offended. Maybe I should actually look and wonder what's going on with them. What's causing that hurt that is lashing out in that way to be offensive and to react in a way that the situation doesn't call for, that's not warranted. This week I was driving to a meeting. It was at night, so it was dark, which helped me notice the emergency vehicle lights flashing ahead. As I was driving on this road, everything started to slow down because there were multiple police and emergency vehicles. And so I slowed down, started to piece together a story here of what was going on. So at one point, on this corner, I'm stopped. I see somebody getting arrested. They're having a really bad day. And then another police vehicle started to pull up, and so we're negotiating around each other, and I'm making turns. And then there's several more emergency vehicles, a fire truck, EMS pulling up, and I'm the first one here to get stopped in traffic, and there's now a line of traffic behind me. And so as I'm sitting there, traffic's blocked in every direction, and I start noticing, oh, there's a street sign that looks like this. That's not good. And there's a car over here where cars shouldn't be. What's going on? This I hope this is not like a serious accident. And I'm thinking, I'm gonna be late for the meeting, but that's okay. We're in this together. Hope everybody's okay. And within a minute, I hear this yelling behind me. So I roll down the window. And I look, and the vehicles behind me, they were in a better spot. They could fare well enough to sort of back out and turn into this driveway and then back out again and go and get out. I was stuck. I wasn't going anywhere. I couldn't get that angle. But some of the people behind me started doing that and getting out to get onto another street. And just as they were doing that, a truck pulls up out of the driveway and starts yelling profanity, top of his lungs. I was sure there was going to be a fight breakout. It was that bad. And I'm thinking, dude, you're surrounded by cops. It's not a great place to make an assault. And he was yelling at the person for turning into his driveway and driving into his grass. And I was just thinking to myself, like, man, I understand lawn maintenance. I value that. I understand that. But this is a strong response given the context. Man, I'm thinking, what happened in this car? Is everybody okay? This person is having a really bad day over here getting arrested. And these people might have really important, urgent things they're trying to get to. I don't know. And my second thought was, man, I wonder what this guy's going through. I wonder what's so upsetting. I wonder what the backstory is that we just caught as we drove through the edge of his grass and elicited such an offensive response. Hope he's doing okay. If you happen to watch this talk or you happen to be in the room, hope you're doing okay. Hope your day is better today than it was that day. Because most of the time when people offend us, it has nothing to do with us. And when we remember that, wait a minute, this is not really about me. God, how can I pray for them? What are they going through? How can I move past this quickly and think of what they might be going through? How do we get over big ones? I mean, it's easy to be easily offended sometimes, but there are some offenses that are big deals, life-altering offenses, abuse, childhood trauma, words so hurtful you would never speak them out loud to your worst enemy. Marriage broken, betrayal, promises broken, consequences of a decision that may have cost you thousands of dollars or hours and hours and hours of time or deep, deep wound. I mean, there are some big, how do we get over the big ones? I know in the room, there are some big ones. And for some of you, if you're honest with yourself, you go, yep, I've been stuck right there. Like, a lot of my life is going on, but part of me is stuck right there on that big offense, and I have not gotten over it. And you can tell because if somebody talks about it, your blood pressure raises way too quickly. If somebody does something that resembles it or even looks like the person that offended you at times, the offense kicks back up. And when we get offended big time, we have two choices. We either rehearse it or we release it. Have you ever had a conversation or a bad interaction, conflict with somebody, and you go home and all day you're rehearsing in your mind, you're thinking about it, you're thinking about what they said, you're putting yourself back, here's what I wish I would have said, what did I do, what did they do, why didn't they stand up for me, why didn't this person say something, how dare they do this, and you just rehearse it over and over again. And when you rehearse it over and over again, you're putting yourself in the emotional state and place of being offended again and again and again. I was in a couple plays in high school. My acting career didn't go any farther than that. But in those plays, if you have lines, you're constantly rehearsing them because you want to be able to deliver them. People are depending on you. You want to be in character. And so you'll find yourself all throughout, especially as the performances get closer, you're just thinking about those again and again. You're thinking through the lines. You want to be ready. You're putting yourself in character. You're thinking, what would this character do? What would this character do? What would this character do? But here's the problem. When we keep rehearsing these old offenses in our heads, we can never go back to the moment and do it again. We don't get a second showing. There's no double performance. It's over. And yet when we keep rehearsing these things, we keep dragging ourselves back into the hurt and hammering into an immovable situation instead of rehearsing it again and again. God wants us to release it. He wants us to let it go. Let me read a passage from Colossians 3:13. It starts out very, very similarly to the other passage we just read in Ephesians. Make allowance for each other's faults. Sound familiar? And forgive anyone who offends you. How? How do I get over this? How do I stop rehearsing and replaying, getting stuck in it? Forgive anyone who offends you. Remember, the Lord forgave you. So you should forgive others? Have the possibility to forgive others? You might forgive others? You must. How do I get over something that was so hurtful? Well, the truth is I've done my fair share of hurting as well. I've offended people. If we stacked up, if we're counting faults, I don't want to know my total. I want to know my debt to other people. And yet, every time to date, without exception, when I have gone to Jesus and asked for forgiveness, guess what happens? As the Lord forgave you. If you haven't experienced it, well, then there's your hang-up right there. There's no framework for forgiveness. If you have not been forgiven and experienced that freedom that Jesus provides freely, that you don't have to earn it or pay it back, you just receive his offered forgiveness. You don't have a framework for this, so it shouldn't make sense until you receive that. Once you receive it and go, oh my gosh, God forgave me and loves me, and there's nothing I can do to pay it back. All of a sudden, it changes our paradigm for the way we treat other people. And when we come up against big offenses, we can look at this and go, okay, God is able to forgive not only me, but this person. I can too. We're going over this. With God's help, we are going over this offense this Christmas season. There are a few people right now that I wish you would click into this mindset of going, I'm not carrying this offense into another holiday. I am going to be over this. I'm moving past this by God's help, by God's grace. I'm forgiving the person who offended me. We're moving up and over. This holiday is going to be free from me getting stuck and rehearsing this in my mind. I'm not going to harbor the bitterness and the angry energy about what this person did. I'm moving over it with God's help. I'm releasing it. No more rehearsing it. Have you ever released a bird into the wild? Open the cage or open the thing or whatever, and then it just flies away? There's no getting it back. You just watch it, and then it's gone. Unless it's a chicken. I have chickens, and they don't fly away. When I let them out, they do a big lap around the yard real quick, spread their wings, and then they just sort of scratch and peck around. They don't leave. And then they just leave droppings everywhere. When you release something, don't release it like a chicken. Release it like a hawk. Let it go. Because I think sometimes we get in this half forgiveness mode of like, okay, I've let it go. I've moved past this. Well, why are you still stepping in this crap? It's scratching around. It's pecking around. It's all over the yard. Let's let it go. Like, really. As he forgave us. That's how we must forgive other people. Can I ask you for a moment for a bit of self-reflection? Is there an offense? Is there a hurt that's still scratching around? That you you're rehearsing it, it's emotionally still got power over you. You know, in your quiet moments, you don't want to deal with this, but it's still there. Friends, you have the power to forgive. Acknowledge the offense. It was wrong. There's no excuse for it. Forgive it. Get over it. I want to raise my soul so high. I want to stretch my wings and glide over this so that, yes, it's not like it's removed from my life, but I have to look backwards to see it because there's nothing in between me and my calling now. There's no bump I keep hammering against in the road. If I want to recall it, I've got to remember back to when I overcame it with God's help. Maybe you know the story of Joseph. If you don't, let me give you the recap. Joseph in the Old Testament was the youngest of a dozen brothers, and his brothers hated him to the point they were really ready to kill him. But instead of killing him, they decided to make a little money off the deal, so they sold him as a slave. And Joseph, his life took a major, major turn, and he ended up in a lot of bad spots. We tend to put a lot of emphasis in the storytelling on the beginning of this story and then on the very end where he's like ruling Egypt and just under Pharaoh and he's saving all kinds of people. But there's some really interesting material about 2/3 of the way through that we skip because the chapters get long. 2/3 of the way through, after Joseph's been through hell, he's been falsely accused, he's been in prison for years, he's been forgotten by everybody, he's sold out by his brothers. Now he's in a place of absolute power. I mean, back here, there's no winning 11 against 1. You got 11 big brothers that come against you. Sorry, you're not gonna win that fight. He totally lost. But here, he's in the position of total power. 11 brothers come begging him for food, and he finds himself in a total reversal. He's in charge. He could call guards to just every single one of them, no questions asked. He had that kind of power. Roles were reversed, and now here he is in charge. If he had been rehearsing this for all those years in prison, if he had been thinking about his brothers and going, I wish I could get them back. How could they do that? How dare they sell me out? I'm their brother. I wonder what in the world they're doing now if I got a chance to nail them. He had the chance, but he hadn't been rehearsing the hurts. He hadn't been living in an offended state. What he had been doing is experiencing God's grace in his life, and when he had the chance to squash them, he forgave them. All of a sudden, it's not like he knew this was coming. It's not like he knew they were coming for years, like, oh, okay, I got to work this up. No, all of a sudden, here are my 11 brothers that tried to kill me, that sold me, and then lied to my dad and said I was dead, and now I've got a chance to axe I could throw them in prison for years. I could do anything I wanted to them. And what did he do? He wept. And he brought them in. He saved the family. And this classic climactic line that he said, when they're like, oh my gosh, this is Joseph, we are dead. We are definitely dead. He goes, no. You don't understand the story. What you intended for evil for me, God used that to do the best thing in my life. The worst thing in my life, God used it. I didn't see it at first, but God used it to do the best thing in my life. The worst thing in your life, God can use it to do the best things in your life. Your life's too short. Your calling's too big. Let's get over it. With God's help, I'm getting over it. And if you're here, you're looking at it like this was a big offense. Yeah. How big is God? Let's change the question. He can bring me over this offense. Oh my gosh, it might take a while. Okay. But what happens when I get right here? All of a sudden, I've got momentum in my life. And that momentum is going to help other people get over big offenses too. Let's stand together. We'll close with a song.